Good morning, good morning. We're getting started. I'm Denise Smiler, Chair of the Pennsylvania Game and Control Board. Before we begin, I would like to ask everyone to please silence your cell phones and all electronic devices. I also would like to remind everyone while masks are no longer required, if you feel comfortable wearing one, please do so. With all the board members present, I'd like to call today's meeting to order. For the record, I would note that in addition to the 7 board members, we also have our ex officio members, Fred Strathmeyer, representing Russell Redding, Secretary for the Department of Agriculture, Kristen Heidingsfelder, representing Daniel Hassel, Secretary for the Department of Revenue, and Jennifer Langen, representing Stacy Garrity, State Treasurer. Thank you all for joining us. As the first order of business, I'd ask everyone to please stand and join me for a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. By way of announcements, the board held an executive session yesterday, Tuesday, May 17th, to discuss personnel matters and to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations relating to matters coming before the board. The board will now have an informational presentation from Wind Creek Bethlehem on their unattended children mitigation plan, which has culminated in Wind Creek entering into a Memorandum of Understanding with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The Memorandum of Understanding has been provided to the board in advance of this meeting, and we're going to hear a bit more about it in the next few minutes. With that being said, although it's not a formal proceeding before the board because the Memorandum of Understanding now obligates Wind Creek to employ certain practices as it pertains to unattended children, I think it is appropriate to place under oath any persons presenting today who are not attorneys. So any non-attorneys, if you would stand to be sworn in by the court reporter.
Swearing again.
Okay, Chair, we have some members of the executive team here that are not planning to testify, but that are available for questions in addition to, one non-lawyer that will be testifying.
Would you like to just have them stand to be sworn just in case? Okay, great.
Thank you.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Okay, and as always, in addition, I would ask everyone who's speaking to please state your name and spell your name for the court reporter. And with that, Wind Creek, you may proceed, or as Office of Enforcement Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Michael Rowland, ROL-A&D with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The first matter this morning is the presentation of a Memorandum of Understanding between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Wind Creek Bethlehem, LLC, doing business as Wind Creek Bethlehem. By way of background, the board held a regularly scheduled public meeting on February 10th, 2021. During that meeting, a matter involving the involuntary exclusion of a patron who left 2 young children unattended in a parked vehicle at a licensed gaming facility was addressed. The board expressed several concerns and made several inquiries related to the response made to the unattended children by the facility in that instance. The matter concluded with the board's desire to have the Office of Enforcement Counsel and the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement review the policies and procedures of all Category 1, 2, 3, and 4 slot machine licenses relating to children left unattended and the history of such events. The presentation today is specific to the unattended minor incidents at Wind Creek. BIE conducted an investigation related to the history of unattended children at Wind Creek for the years 2018 through 2021, and the efforts undertaken by Wind Creek to deter, detect, and respond to such incidents. During the course of the investigation, BIE reviewed Wind Creek surveillance reports, emails, surveillance department daily logs, security reports, the Wind Creek Surveillance Standard Operating Procedures, the Wind Creek Security Standard Operating Procedures, Bureau of Casino Compliance reports, and camera schematics for areas where children could be left unattended, such as parking areas, food courts, and the marketplace. Additionally, BIE conducted interviews with Wind Creek personnel, which included the Director of Security, Director of Surveillance, and the Vice President of Compliance and Risk Management. BIE also interviewed members of Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board staff and representatives of Pennsylvania State Police. Based upon its review and examination of the instances in which a parent or guardian left a child or minor unattended on property, Wind Creek has, in consultation with OEC, developed a mitigation plan to enhance its efforts to deter and detect such conduct by the responsible parent or guardian. Wind Creek would now like to present that plan to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, board members. Lynn Kaufman, L-Y-N-N-E, Kaufman, Cooper Levinson, Levenson, on behalf of Wind Creek Bethlehem LLC. Today presenting will be Mcconaughey, who is the Executive Director, Compliance and Risk Management, and is also an attorney, as well as Glenn Granitz, who is the Director of Security. And I now turn this over to Mr. Mcconaughey, or yes, Mr. Mcconaughey.
Thank you, and good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners, and thank you for inviting us here today to present on this important topic. Lynn introduced me, so I'll refrain from reintroducing myself.
You should please spell your name for the court
Sure.
reporter.
First name is Michael, regular spelling. Last name is Magazoo, M-A-G-A-Z-Z-U. And in the interest of time, Glenn Granitz, last name is Granitz, and he's the Director of Security at Wind Creek Bethlehem. So again, thank you for inviting us. This has been a topic of concern that we have reported on for several years, but as Mr. Rowland articulated, this issue has really come to the forefront, brought to by this board for the past year and a half or 2 years. And what it has required us to do is take a much closer look at the incidents that were occurring, why they were occurring, all of the circumstances around those incidents, and really doing a deep dive to figure out what we could do as a casino license holder, as a business, and as a responsible corporate citizen in this Commonwealth to help, as Mr. Rowland put it, deter and detract from these problems that we were facing on our property. So for the past several months, probably better part of a year, we have analyzed a lot of incident reports, poured through a lot of data to really focus on what we believe are the most problematic areas, the things that we could tackle to help reduce this problem as much as possible. And that's what we intend to take you through today in our presentation. So with me and Mr. Granitz are also Kathy McCracken, who is our Executive Vice President and General Manager, and Patrick Ryan, who is our Assistant General Manager. And if necessary, or if a question comes up that they might be able to speak to a little better than me or Mr. Granitz, then they'll do so. So a little bit of background about the Wind Creek Bethlehem property. It's a casino hotel resort. It has a hotel tower with 282 rooms and suites, a retail outlet mall with a food court, an event center, conference rooms, restaurants, a gift shop, and a casino floor with over 150,000 square feet of gaming space. Wind Creek Bethlehem is what's considered an integrated resort. It has a wide variety of amenities. We host a lot of non-gaming events within those amenities in those areas, and we've listed just a few examples here, such as weddings, birthday parties and ceremonies, Santa Claus event that runs throughout the holiday season, Easter bunny and Easter egg hunt events around Easter, Halloween trick-or-treating events, sports competitions, concerts, and shows. And as you can imagine, many of these amenities and the events that occur within them are geared toward families with children. Despite our efforts over the past few years or several years, minors are sometimes left unattended by their parents or guardians on our property. Nonetheless, we constantly seek to improve our operations to minimize the number of those incidents and the amount of time that a minor is left unattended. Our mitigation plan is essentially threefold, and that's what we intend to take you through here in the next few minutes. The first component of that plan really focuses on the signs and displays around our property. And then as Mr. Granitz will take you through the two others, which are somewhat related. They're focused more on our outside or third-party security. And it's not just team member involvement as it's listed here. The more appropriate term would probably be team member and other third-party involvement. So aside from that outside security firm that we hire, there are other third-party, there's one tenant I should say multiple tenants, but also third-party service providers that we've worked more closely with recently to try to help this issue. So here's the first with all of the signs and displays that you'll see here in the next few minutes, we've, with all of the data and incident reports we explored, we tried to focus on posting more signs and more visible signs in the areas where these incidents were occurring. And as we'll discuss a little later on, we believe that we've been successful when we look at the statistics over the past several months. So this first sign is posted in all entrances as guests enter from the parking garage into the building. There are two different entry points from the parking garage into the building on 7 different floors, so that there are 14 of these signs in the entry doors from the parking garage. There's also one that's prominently posted on a support beam in the food court. The sign on the left side of this page is posted in the food court at the market entrance. And as we'll get into, the reason for this sign at this particular place is...
I'm sorry, the first sign that you showed, where is that posted?
This sign is, this is posted at every entry point as you come in from the parking garage into the building.
Okay.
And there's also one in the food court, sort of in the middle of the food court on a wide support beam. And the sign on the left here, this is also posted in the food court at what we call the market entrance, which is the entry point from the food court into the casino floor. The sign on the right is posted on the back side of an elevator column that's in our retail outlet mall that is just adjacent to the food court, and it's strategically placed there because we have a third-party tenant called Kids Quest that is at the bottom of the escalators from the food court into the mall. And we posted this sign just outside of Kids Quest to maximize visibility with parents as they're coming and going into that facility. This next page shows 2 different stickers that we have applied to all of the tables in the food court. And while it was a low-cost measure for us, we believe that this has been arguably one of the most significant measures we've taken because of the visibility of it, and because, again, as we'll get into, the number of incidents that were arising out of the food court. There's a correlation between when we posted these, applied these to the tables in the food court, and a significant drop in these incidents that we've seen in that area. And to us, it was all about visibility. So there are 65 tables in the food court area, and there's one of these stickers on every table. And this gives you an idea of what they look like on an actual table. And through trial and error, Mr. Granitz and I were just talking about this earlier this week, you know, there were certain tables where these stickers were applied in the middle, and as you can see, the condiments are usually in the middle of a table in an area like this, and so it sounds simple, but we, you know, when we revisit these things regularly as we do, we said to ourselves, well, we have to place them at the end of the table rather than in the middle because now people can't see them. So it's a constant revisit of this issue that we do daily. This next sign is posted at the elevator lobbies at the 2 entry points to the casino that we call the main entrance and the bus entrance. There are 2 in each elevator lobby. There are 7 floors in the parking garage leading into the building. So that makes for a total of 28 of these signs. And this was another sign that was enhanced probably end of 21 or beginning of 22. I want to say it was toward the end of last year. And what we did was really try to call out some of the language at the bottom, including that violators would be prosecuted. This next page shows a display that appears on our in-house TV channel in the hotel rooms called the Happenings channel. So this is displayed on a constant loop on that channel for all hotel guests to see. This next item is a depiction of a key jacket for a key card that a hotel guest would receive upon check-in. And on the right side of the page, while it's small, you can see that you may see that there's language that is geared toward this very issue, and it says minors may not be left unattended in any public area while on property. So if okay with the board, I'll pass it over to Mr. Granitz to talk about what we do with our outside third-party security firm, as well as our team members and some other third-party tenants and service providers.
Can we not leave signs? 1 and 1 is 2. You can never make it 3. As hard as you're trying to dance around the issue, that sign that says when you're first trying to capture somebody, they're coming in off of a parking lot or a garage, minors must be accompanied by an adult. That doesn't solve the problem. That's not why you're here. It's because parents, grandparents, their guardian are leaving kids in cars. We're not even to the hotel yet. Why not that first sign say you can't do it? You dance around the issue by saying minors must be accompanied by an adult. One of the signs that you had that's a table, you know, you can go back, that's the sign that needs to be there. Parents, don't leave your kids in the car. I don't know why you're dancing around the issue. The TV, I got to turn it on in the hotel. How about if I don't turn it on? How about if I just throw my kid in there and go down? I never see it. That printing on the key jacket, it is so small. Don't worry about the thermostat and lights. Who cares about the thermostat and lights? Why would that be on there? I don't care about elevator access. You're here because people are leaving kids in cars unattended, and they're leaving kids in their hotel rooms unattended. You dance all around the issue.
Any other comments? I actually do want to make a comment on the key jacket where it says minors may not be left unattended in any public area while on the property. Well, a hotel room may not be perceived as a public area, and you don't want them left in the hotel rooms by themselves unattended either. So the language could be tightened up a little bit so it's not left to interpretation what is a public area.
I just had one question as well. Regarding the notation that they may be prosecuted, I noticed that some of the signage says you may be prosecuted, some says you will be prosecuted. Was there a reason for the 2 different signs?
No.
Okay.
Not a compelling one. Okay. And we have the ability, frankly, to change it to whatever we'd like. I think they're could easily be a difference of opinion about what it should say. I have my own. At the end of the day, we don't have the ability to make a decision about whether someone is prosecuted. That's left to law enforcement. So perhaps the clearer statement would be that they may be prosecuted because we can't enforce that.
Right. And we had discussed this. Sometimes if I see a sign that says, you know, if I do something, I may be prosecuted, it's just like the ads that you see on television talking about prescription drugs. You may suffer a heart attack, blood clots, all that. I tend to ignore it. But I understand you can't put will prosecuted because you don't have control over that. But in my view, one of the most effective signs you could say is that if you leave your child unattended, you will be permanently evicted, because I think that's something that would really, don't you think, hit home with some people that have a really strong desire to be in the casino?
I think that for some people that could have more of an effect. I think the word prosecuted for some people might have a stronger effect.
If you say will, right, but
Yeah.
I don't know, am I wrong? May prosecuted, does that scare, typically
So
scare
maybe
anybody?
prosecuted, I think, is the more accurate statement. Will be prosecuted, I think, has a stronger
Exactly.
effect. If you ask me my personal opinion, I prefer the latter. And I don't know that there would be any hesitation on our side about making it consistent.
Right.
With the
Understanding
recognition that we can't follow up on that prosecution. We can encourage it. We always work with PSP and with PGCB staff on site and Bethlehem PD.
that- So be a little bit of a bluff, but that's okay, right?
I don't see the huge downside.
Okay.
So I think we would be okay with that. And I agree with, well, I'm a big fan of consistency. And so we are going to take all of these comments into account. And as I mentioned a little earlier in the presentation, there is a bit of trial and error in all of this.
Right.
And so these things will continue to change over the next few months, next couple of years, until we feel like we've completely gotten it right.
Great, thank you. I applaud your efforts.
Thank you.
Mr. Granitz, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I would. I think these are great suggestions, and I come from a background in law enforcement. As you'll hear, I recently joined the property, and I don't think it's a bluff to say that law enforcement will be involved, because that's our role. That's what happens every day. I like the eviction piece. That's what we're doing on the back end. I mean, a lot of this makes sense. So I get the may and the will. That's outside of our realm. But the involvement of law enforcement is absolutely something that can happen and will happen. And the eviction part, as well as the ideas, I think are good ones.
So you're talking about changing the signage to say will be, law enforcement will be involved?
Absolutely. Not may, but will with that part. And then we're not talking about prosecution per se, but like you said, it's there. The thought process is there. It makes sense.
We appreciate your entertaining our suggestions, and I'm sure you'll tweak the language to be appropriate for your particular property. So you may proceed.
All right. Thank you, and good morning. My name is Glenn Granitz, as you heard, and I joined the property right around the holidays in December. It's nice to meet all of you in a fashion here. Speaking in terms of our outside security, the property has made a significant commitment to extending our security patrols into the retail and market area. That in and of itself is not new. There are some nuances that are new to it, which I think has helped in reducing the concerns. Obviously, the mobile patrols in the parking garage and the surface parking lots continue. Foot patrols throughout the retail outlet mall and food court as well. In all, over $4.1 million has been spent to date on outside security services in this area. Some of the nuances are in regards to communication and are in regards to our property and my department better working with this and moving the assets and what we're paying for into an area that actually translates to better results. In particular, some of the nuances that have changed is we now have one of these officers stationed full-time in the market area to observe and report these things back to us. And obviously, in addition to our regular security officers in the SOC, and very small things as we, as a property, and Mike pointed out very well just the other day, seeing something with the condiments, which is a small thing, but it goes to show you how often we're talking with everyone about this, is having the shift changes for the third-party security, which is Allied, actually occurring in the market now. So there's actually no time off of the floor, which has helped us greatly. A very small change, but shift changes could take 15 to 30 minutes. So now we've moved that in there, so we don't have any downtime at all from the third-party provider. Moving on to team member and other third-party involvement, this is an area that the property has worked diligently on, is that now in our new hire orientation specifically to all team members, doesn't have to be security, it is a part of that, bless you, is part of that 2-day orientation that all team members get. I got it on my first 2 days. They hit home on the importance of everyone reporting these incidents, not just on the gaming floor, but in all areas of the property. And that is something that everyone gets on their first 2 days. The hotel team members, I know you had suggestions on the key jacket and the channel, but now our front desk of our hotel are now being trained to speak directly to each incoming guest in regards to our unattended minor policy and what we are expecting of our guests. So there is that verbiage coming when they check in as well. As you may or may not know, the market, which is where a significant amount of our incidents do occur, is actually run by a third party. Their name is Villa, and they work very hard. But what we have established is trainings and ongoing meetings with them, just like yesterday morning, that's where I was, right where those tables are, and working with their staff to ensure that as they're bussing the tables, they're cleaning the tables, not just that they're reporting them to us, but that they're making us aware of situations before they happen. Hey, there's 2 little boys over here appear to be eating lunch with their mom, totally acceptable. This is something that we really want to keep an eye on. That way one of our staff can walk over, maybe have a conversation and say, hey, I don't know what's going on today, what you're planning on doing, but trying to prevent some of these incidents before they happen. And that relationship has been very beneficial over the 6 months plus that I've been here. We obviously have Kids Quest, which is an area when I first got here, I have little children of my own. I kind of sent them in as a secret shopper to watch what was going on and see what we're doing and establishing the regular meetings. We've actually worked with Kids Quest to change their entire procedure and locking system. They've put quite an investment in over the last few months. About 2 months ago it was finished. And while no system is perfect, this one honestly is much improved with the electronic door swipes for all to keep both kids in and honestly anyone else out that shouldn't be in there. So we've been, I guess happy would be the right word, with Kids Quest's commitment to improving and investing in their procedures and mechanisms. We wanted to make the board aware of just how large the Wind Creek Bethlehem property is, extending far beyond just the market retail and the amount of people that we bring in, and working closely with the city of Bethlehem. Arts Quest and Steel Stacks on the former Bethlehem Steel campus, which maybe some of you have heard of, are host to very large events, many of which are geared toward young people. We're just finishing prom season, which when it rains, we found out that we're a very interesting place for people to take pictures. So it was something for us to be aware of and to work very closely with our partners as we establish great relationships. If you're a car enthusiast, you'll probably know that about every other Sunday, some of the biggest car shows on the eastern side of PA and Jersey are located on our property. It's called Cars and Coffee. It's quite a big event, free concerts all summer long, and of course all kinds of kids event, including the Lehigh Valley's premier underage New Year's Eve event called Peeps Fest. And then of course you have Music Fest, which is considered the nation's largest music festival, and the largest concert venue of Music Fest is on our property. So quite a lot of people of all ages coming and going. And we wanted to highlight our involvement with the Bethlehem Police Department, increased involvement probably since the last time it's been addressed with the board here. The Event Center, which is on our property and hosts all varieties of shows, and the Wind Creek Bethlehem property, we have increased our utilization of Bethlehem Police Department. We have increased them in terms of their patrolling of our lots, being out on foot and in car, looking into cars, seeing what's going on, obviously promoting safety, but also looking for unattended minors on a dual purpose. And we continue to do that on all high-volume days and events. And it's been a very healthy and ongoing relationship. We meet with them constantly. I'll be with Chief Cott next Wednesday. She'll be on property to see how we can continue to improve this relationship.
So far, you've heard from me and Mr. Granitz about all of the different measures we have taken, that we plan to continue to take to help mitigate this problem. And so finally, we have what is just a snapshot of recent results. There's some statistics about where these incidents are occurring, but also wanted to highlight for the board some of the success we believe we've seen this year. So on the left, you can see this is for all of calendar year 21 and through April of 22, by location, number of unattended minor incidents at each location. You can see that the food court, the vast majority of these incidents are occurring in the food court. The outlet mall is just adjacent to the food court, so you might also combine those three in with that 32 number. And then to the right just shows the average number of incidents we were experiencing per month on property in 2021 and what we are seeing now through April of 22, which is why we believe some of the things that we did toward the end of 21 and early 22 are having a real effect. And that is all we have for our presentation, and happy to take any questions.
Actually, I would like to know if OEC has anything to present before I open it for questions.
We actually don't have any questions, and we don't have a formal presentation. We would just like to add that we've extensively reviewed the mitigation plan developed by Wind Creek to deter and detect incidents of unattended children on its property. And OEC at this point can confirm that Wind Creek has implemented the measures set forth in the plan. That's all of them. Everything discussed today is in place. And the Office of Enforcement Counsel also would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Commissioner Manzano-Diaz?
Yes, good morning. With regard to the cameras that you're talking about, are those infrared cameras, or are those just regular cameras?
We do not employ infrared cameras at this time. I think I'm safe to say that that is something that we are looking at and considering, and something that we are discussing and looking to possibly budget for coming up in the cycle.
Okay, I was asking because I saw a demonstration of the infrared camera, and especially at nighttime, it is a tremendous difference in terms of the quality and your ability to actually see clearly inside of a car. So I'm glad you're considering it.
Correct. I was the chief of police in the city of Allentown here in Pennsylvania for quite some time, and have a lot of investigative experience. So we are doing our due diligence to look through what works best for our property. We're aware of what has been done at other properties. I've been going around and taking a look and talking to lots of people as I get to know my position, and everything's on the table, and I'm excited to see what we're going to come up with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Regan?
Yes, I do think these are very impressive efforts to curtail this problem. And of course, you can only do so much, and people are going to find a way to skirt that. But it looks like you've really taken some great steps. Regarding Kids Quest, is there an hourly cost to that?
There is.
And what is that?
It's significant, because honestly, I went in there kind of like a secret shopper, as I said, and I paid it, and I want to say it's at least $20 an hour,
Okay.
And it actually fluctuates depending on the age of the child. So the younger the child, the higher the rate, if that makes sense, because it requires more of a one-on-one, almost like a daycare in some aspects.
And is it significantly utilized by gambler patrons?
More so than I thought when I came here, and it works very well. a majority of the time. And the young lady in charge has been nothing but willing to sit down and take our suggestions almost verbatim. And their ability to report, and also the transparency when they make a mistake or an incident happens, even if it isn't. Even if it's just a child that is an older child that's waiting for their dad to come get them from wherever he's coming, and they step outside the area, they're informing us, and that's reflected in your statistics here. So it's a good deal of communication, and it is fairly well utilized.
Great. Awesome.
Hi.
And just, I'm sorry, one other question. Did I understand you correctly that there's somebody now in the food court, a security member, 24 hours?
Correct. It's one of our third-party service providers at this time is in the food court throughout their shift.
Thank you.
Hi, Kathy McCracken, McCracken. I just wanted to jump in on your Kids Quest question, if you don't mind,
Can you
Commissioner.
speak into the mic?
Sure.
a little
Is
bit?
that better?
Thank
Originally, I was one of the team members that started with SANS LVS, and one of the things we wanted to do is actually we looked at Kids Quest because our previous president had worked with them up in the Connecticut area, and it was one of the vendors we actually wanted in our mall so that we could give people an option of where to place their kids safely when they came to gamble. So we've had, as Glenn mentioned, we've had a very nice relationship with them from the beginning, and I don't have the exact stats, but many of our gamblers use that as a safe place. Even people that come in for dinner and a show use it. So I think it's been a real nice asset for the property and trying to keep people safe.
Are they open 24/7?
No, they're not open 24/7, but they're open very early in the morning till like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. So,
Yeah, thank you.
so there's a wide range of when you can leave children there.
Commissioner Mustillo?
Yeah, did I hear you early on say that the stickers on the tables in the food court were very effective?
We think they are. That we think the statistics so far this year show that they are. We don't, other than the metrics we shared with you, I don't have a way of proving that, but we believe there's a strong correlation between when we put them there and the decrease in number of cases. We've seen a lot of times when we pour through all of these incident reports, and we do review them every day and we revisit them later on. A lot of times, you'll see an incident where a parent will hand their child, could be 10, 12, 14 years old, here's $20, get yourself some lunch. I'm going to the mall, or I'm going into the casino floor, which is something we are really trying to deter. Parents handing their kids some cash and then going onto the floor. We don't want that. But by putting those stickers there, what we're seeing is a strong deterrence to that scenario where parents are just handing their kids some money for lunch and then walking away to wherever they're going. And we think that that visibility helps parents understand they can't do that.
The reason I asked, because I thought I heard you say they were very effective, are they in the hotel rooms?
Those same stickers are not in the hotel rooms.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dunleavy?
They've been answered.
Okay. Commissioner Ralston?
No, they've been answered. I just wanted to make sure that when you're sending your children for that undercover work, that you're paying them.
Hopefully they're not listening to this.
I'll tell you a funny story. When I was offered the position before I started, I actually, I've never been a gambler, so I actually sent my mom into the casino, and I did have to buy her lunch, though. So it's something that I like to do, and honestly, it's very interesting to get my wife's perspective from, what are we doing? How does Kids Quest look, from a mom's perspective, and to see how the layout works when you're not working, but to see it from the dad perspective. So I find that kind of thing very valuable. Thank you.
Clearly, it's a family affair.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that, I think Commissioner Logan touched on it, that the messages are just direct. I think direct is better. And the more that you can adjust the signs to say exactly what you want or exactly what you don't want that patron to do, I think you'll probably also see a better result in the end.
Commissioner Logan?
No, thanks.
Okay, well, I think that wraps it up then. Thank you very much, and I think all of us on the board really appreciate your efforts and the continued efforts that you revisit this like daily. And we look forward to any improvements you might make in your signage or other security advancements. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Chair and Commissioners.
Our next order of business this morning is consideration of a motion to approve the board meeting transcripts and related matters. May I have a motion to approve the transcript and minutes of the board's February 23rd, 2022 meeting?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the minutes and transcript of the February 23rd, 2022 meeting.
Commissioner Ralston, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted. We will now hear from our Executive Director, Kevin O'Toole.
Good morning, Chair Smiler and members of the board. I bring before you today a request to enter into a new lease arrangement for the board's Northeastern Regional Office, which serves as the headquarters for the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement employees who are assigned to the Northeast region of the state. It also serves as a location from which our board's Office of Hearings and Appeals conducts remote hearings. The lease for our present office in Wilkes-Barre will expire at the end of this month, May 31st, 2022. This necessitated the issuance of a solicitation for proposals by Amanda Peters, the board's procurement and property manager. Amanda requested proposals for a reduced amount of office space from what the board presently rents, given the fact that staff in that office are able to telework when performing many of their duties. After reviewing the proposals received, the board's evaluation committee for this solicitation recommended that the board enter into a 5-year lease with 2 2-year options to renew with our current lessor, Jewel Core, Inc. Under this new lease, the current space will be reconfigured to provide the board with roughly 1/2 of the present space, and the board will save approximately $1,800 per month on rental payments. The board's Office of Chief Counsel has now finalized this lease arrangement, and at this time, I would respectfully request a motion approving the board's entry into this contract for a rental term beginning June 1st, 2022.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the lease arrangement as described.
Commissioner Mustillo, seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, we have Danette Bixler George, Human Resources.
Good morning, Chair, board members. The Office of Human Resources has one motion for your consideration today relative to the hiring of 2 individuals. Both of these individuals have completed the background investigation and drug screening and are ready to be presented to the board. First is Ashley Dubovich, who has been selected as a casino compliance representative at Lady Luck Casino and is recommended for hire by Christopher Schroeder, Director of Casino Compliance. Next is Stacy Russell, who has been selected as an executive secretary for the Bureau of Licensing. She is recommended for hire by Sean Hannon, Director of Licensing. Unless you have any questions, I ask that the board consider a motion to approve the hiring actions as indicated.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board approve the applicants for hire as proposed by the Human Resources Director.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted. Thank you, Danette.
Thank you.
We now have Chief Counsel Steve Cook.
Morning.
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 First agenda item today for the board to consider are 3 local law enforcement grant applications, which will be presented by Senior Counsel Denise Miller-Schutte.
Morning, Madam Chairman, board members. Can you hear me? As Steve said, we do have 3 grants for your consideration. The first is the City of Pittston Police Department. They're seeking a grant, it's their first time seeking a grant, of $329. In order to accomplish their goals, the police department is seeking funds for salary, overtime and benefits, training, capital equipment, and public awareness and education. The second grant that's before you is with the Fayette County District Attorney's Office. If awarded, this would be their second grant. They are asking for $250,000 in order to continue with their investigations and their prosecutions. At this time, they are seeking hourly and overtime pay for members of their task force, capital equipment, training funds, storage for machines that are confiscated, and vehicle rental and money to pay for their audit at the end of the grant. And the final grantee, this would be their second grant. They're asking for $210,000, and they want to continue to pursue their investigations and prosecutions as well. And they are looking for salaries, benefits, vehicle rentals, training operations, public outreach, and transportation and storage. If you have
Third one. You didn't.
Monroe County District Attorney's Office?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that I said that. I apologize. All applications have been reviewed, and they do meet the qualifications of the board has set forth in their guidelines. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, these are ready to be considered by the board and a motion to approve.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board approve the local law enforcement grant applications as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Logan, seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item relates to a temporary regulation, which Deputy Chief Counsel Chad Zimmerman will present.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is an amendment to temporary regulation number 125-241, which relates to the hot shooter jackpot wager. After consultation with the manufacturer, it was determined there were some issues related to a pay table and some terminology in the wager. We are seeking to make the appropriate amendments to the temporary regulation. If adopted by the board, it will be deposited with the Legislative Reference Bureau for publication after the meeting. If you have any questions, I can answer them. If not, I would request a motion to approve the amendments to the temporary regulation.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board adopt the amendments to temporary regulation number 125-241 regarding table game side wagers and variations as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
May I have a second, please?
Commissioner Ralston, seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Next before the board are 6 petitions for consideration. These matters will be decided on the documentary record by agreement of the parties. In each of these cases, the board has been provided with the complete record prior to today's meeting. The first petition before the board today is GW Cumberland OpCo's petition requesting approval of a change in ownership. By way of background, on January 19th, 2022, the board awarded GW Cumberland OpCo a Category 4 slot machine license. GW Cumberland will open and operate their Category 4 facility in Shippensburg Township. They are a wholly owned subsidiary of GW Cumberland Holdings, Inc., which itself is currently a wholly owned subsidiary of Greenwood Racing, Inc. To date, Greenwood Racing currently holds all shares of common stock that have been issued by GW Cumberland Holdings, Inc. Robert W. Green is the founder of and serves as the chairman of Greenwood Racing, as well as being licensed as a principal of GW Cumberland OpCo pursuant to shareholders agreement dated March 18th, 2022. At this point, because of that shareholders agreement, or based upon that shareholders agreement, GW Cumberland Holdings proposes to issue 1 share of common stock to Mr. Green for a purchase price of $6.3 million. This purchase price amount reflects funds that Mr. Green would contribute to the development of the Cat 4 licensed facility. If this transaction were to be approved by the board, Mr. Green would become a 10% direct owner of GW Cumberland Holdings, and thereby would also be a 10% indirect owner of GW Cumberland OpCo. GW Cumberland OpCo also requests that certain information in its petition be maintained as confidential. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to GW Cumberland OpCo's request, but proposes that the board impose several conditions which were outlined in OEC's answer and to which the petitioner does not object. OEC also seeks confidentiality protection for certain aspects of its answer, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board grant GW Cumberland OpCo's petition for approval of change in ownership as described by the Office of Chief Counsel. I further move that the request for confidentiality by both parties be granted.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next before the board is a request from Underdog Sports Incorporated for approval of a restructuring and change in control. Underdog Sports, Inc. holds a fantasy contest operator license with the board. Underdog desires to establish a new holding company that will own 100% of its issued and outstanding shares, with Underdog's current stockholders converting all of their ownership interests into the new company with the same percentage of ownership. As part of the proposed restructuring, Underdog Sports created 2 companies to facilitate the change: Underdog Sports Holdings Incorporated and U Sports Merger Sub Incorporated. Both have applications pending before the board. It is noteworthy that during the Office of Enforcement Counsel's investigation of this petition, it was discovered that in 2020, Underdog Sports entered into 2 equity-based investment agreements which were not reported to the board, OEC, or the Bureau of Licensing. At this point, because of that discovery, OEC and Underdog have entered into a consent agreement to resolve this violation, and the board will hear from these parties later today on that consent agreement. Notwithstanding the failure to timely report the new persons and entities taking minority interest in the company, OEC has no objection to Underdog Sports' request in this petition, subject to conditions outlined in their answer. Again, the petitioner has no objection to those conditions, and both parties are also seeking confidentiality of certain aspects of their filings, which the Office of Chief Counsel agrees is relevant. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant Underdog Sports, Inc.'s petition for approval of a restructuring and change in control as described by the Office of Chief Counsel. I further move that the requests for confidentiality by both parties be granted.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
TDN Money System Incorporated's petition for a change in control is the next matter before the board. By way of background, TDN Money Systems had previously been licensed by the board as a supplier, and they are currently licensed as a slot machine manufacturer designee. They're in the business of distributing and servicing of gaming equipment, ticket sorting machines, and currency handling machines in the gaming industry. Prior to 2022, Richard Orlando was TDN's 100% owner, president, CEO, and director of the company. Louis Orlando was vice president of the company, and Gordon Bell was vice president of sales. All 3 individuals are currently licensed as principals of TDN. On January 5th, 2022, TDN notified the Bureau of Licensing that Richard Orlando was no longer TDN's 100% owner. He resigned from all of his positions with that company as of December 31st, 2021, and at this point, Louis Orlando holds 60% interest in the company, and Mr. Bell holds the remaining 40% interest in TDN. On January 6, 2022, 5 days after the sale of this company to the two individuals I just mentioned, the parties filed the current petition. As with the previous matter, TDN's failure to timely petition for this proposed change in control is also the subject of a consent agreement, which OEC will be presenting later today. As for the petition presently before the board, OEC has no objection to the relief requested, subject to conditions outlined in its answer, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant TDN Money Systems petition for change in ownership as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Next before the board is a request from an individual with the initials KL to be removed from the board's self-exclusion list. On December 7th, 2011, KL placed herself on the self-exclusion list and chose a lifetime self-exclusion option. Board regulations now allow for an individual who chooses or who chose the lifetime exclusion option to petition the board for removal from the self-exclusion list after 10 years have elapsed from the date they placed themselves on the list, so long as they complete a problem gambling assessment and follow through on any recommendations made as a result of that assessment. On February 28, 2022, KL filed a petition to be removed from the exclusion list. KL stated in her request that she had been new to gambling at the time she placed herself on the list in 2011, was tired and frustrated over a recent loss, and in speaking to someone at Parks Casino, she decided to place herself on the list. She further states in her petition that all she really needed was a cooling off period and that she is not a compulsive gambler and would like to continue or return to visiting casinos for recreation. In accordance with the board's current regulation, KL provided with her petition a problem gambling assessment verification form signed by a certified assessment provider confirming that she conducted the assessment of KL and that treatment was not recommended as a result of that assessment. The Office of Chief Counsel, the Office of Enforcement Counsel confirmed the authenticity of the assessment and has no objection to the removal of KL from the self-exclusion list, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant KL's petition for removal from the self-exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next petition before the board today pertains to the Office of Enforcement Counsel's request to place Jane Mcconaughey on the board's involuntary exclusion list. The uncontested facts in this matter are that on May 21st, 2021, Ms. Mcconaughey left her 13-year-old son sit in the bus lobby at Mohegan Sun Pocono Casino while she entered the casino and gamed. Casino staff noticed the child and contacted security, who found Ms. Mcconaughey on the gaming floor and escorted her back to the bus lobby. The child was unattended for approximately 36 minutes. Ms. Mcconaughey was not criminally charged, although law enforcement was called. She was, however, permanently evicted from the casino. In February of 2022, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Ms. Mcconaughey on the involuntary exclusion list. Ms. Mcconaughey initially requested a hearing after receipt of the petition, but subsequently contacted the board's clerk and withdrew her request for a hearing. As a result, this matter is before the board today to be decided on the documents, and it's now ripe for consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the Office of Enforcement Counsel's petition as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Mustino seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The last petition before the board today pertains to a request from the Office of Enforcement Counsel to place Blondell Simmons on the involuntary exclusion list. The uncontested facts in this matter are that on August 16, 2019, while patronizing Harrah's Philadelphia Casino, Ms. Simmons was observed looking through cabinets at Means Noodle Bar, a restaurant in the casino. She then attempted to open a slot wallet lockboxes and the slot host tip box, which she eventually succeeded in opening, and she was thereafter able to remove approximately $5,000 in cash from the tip box. Ms. Simmons was criminally charged for her actions, and she was permanently banned from Harrah's. In July of 2021, Ms. Simmons pleaded guilty to theft by unlawful taking. On June 9th, 2020, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to request Ms. Simmons be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list. After service and procedural issues, Ms. Simmons was properly served and given the opportunity to respond to OEC's petition. She orally requested a hearing and then later withdrew her request, allowing the board to decide this matter today based upon the documentary record, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board grant the Office of Enforcement Counsel's petition as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and place Blondell Simmons on the exclusion list.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next, presenting withdrawals, surrenders, and reports and recommendations is Deputy Chief Counsel Chad Zimmerman.
The next matter before the board pertains to several unopposed motions to withdraw applications or surrender the credentials of the following individuals and entities: AGL Investments Godo Kaisha, formerly known as Angel Holdings Godo Kaisha; Gaming Partners International Corporation; Gaming Partners International USA Incorporated, doing business as GPI USA Inc.; GPI Mexicana SA DECV; Benjamin J. Komen, Hiroshi Ikeda, Lee Ian Martin, Yasushi Shigeta, Norio Yoshimura, Frederick Galliers Pratt, Land Game Trust, Evan Wainhouse Davis, Matthew Brady, Pamela Kaliki Morris Williams, Robert Fell, Simone Nardi, William R. Stage, and Mehmet Ali Alp Guler. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to any of these withdrawals or surrenders. As a result, if the board chooses to grant the requests in each case, it would be doing so without prejudice to the requester. These matters are all now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board issue orders to approve the withdrawals and surrenders as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next before the board for consideration are 5 reports and recommendations received from the Office of Hearings and Appeals. These reports and recommendation, along with the evidentiary record for each hearing, have been provided to the board in advance of this meeting. Additionally, the persons involved have each been notified that the board is considering their matter today and that each have the ability to come forward and briefly address the board. If any of the persons who are subject to one of these reports and recommendation would like to address the board, I would ask them to come forward when their matter is called. Miles Mione. The first report and recommendation before the board today pertains to Miles Mione. On June 16, 2021, Mr. Mione submitted an application for a gaming employee occupation permit seeking to work as a slot technician at Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. On July 29, 2021, the Office of Enforcement Counsel issued a notice of recommendation of denial on Mr. Mione based upon Mr. Mione's criminal record. A hearing in this matter was held October 26, 2021. OEC appeared and offered testimonial and documentary evidence, and Mr. Mione appeared and testified on his own behalf. Evidence presented at the hearing established that Mr. Mione disclosed his criminal record during the application process. Specifically, in addition to earlier offenses, in April 2007, he had pleaded guilty to a felony forgery charge and a misdemeanor theft after he stole checks from his grandfather, wrote them out to himself, and cashed them. Mr. Mione was approximately 18 years old at the time of these thefts and testified that he was addicted to drugs and stole to support his drug addiction. Mr. Mione went through 3 drug rehabilitation programs from 2005 and 2006 and was on a methadone maintenance program for approximately 8 years. Mr. Mione testified he had not used drugs since 2006. He's been employed in several positions that require him to handle cash. He is now a father and has been working as a security guard at Penn National Racecourse in the stable gate since June of 2021. After hearing all of the evidence presented, a report and recommendation was issued in November of 2021, recommending that Mr. Mione's application be denied without prejudice, which would allow him to reapply for a permit after April 12, 2022. As the board lacks the authority to grant a gaming permit for an individual convicted of a felony until 15 years have elapsed from the date of the conviction. That recommendation is now moot as we are past the 15-year mark since Mr. Nguyen's last conviction, and he is now eligible to apply for and be granted a permit. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board reject as moot the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding the recommendation of denial of Miles Nguyen's gaming employee occupation permit application as described by the Office of Chief Counsel. I further move that Mr. Nguyen be deemed eligible to reapply for a permit immediately.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Heather Colasar's report and recommendation is next before the board. On December 3rd, 2021, Ms. Colasar filed a petition requesting removal from the involuntary exclusion list. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to her request and requesting a hearing in the matter, which was held on February 3rd, 2022. OEC appeared at the hearing but did not provide any further testimony or documentary evidence, relying solely on the facts admitted during the default judgment matter placing her on the list and the revocation of her gaming employee occupation permit. Ms. Colasar appeared and testified on her own behalf. The facts admitted during the default show that on April 23, 2015, while working as a cage cashier at Mohegan Sun Pocono, Ms. Colasar removed $2,500 from her cash drawer, proceeded to her purse at the back of the cage. Consequently, she was charged with theft-related offenses. In February of 2016, Ms. Colasar was admitted into the Luzerne County's Accelerated Rehabilitative Disposition Program, which she then completed. She paid $2,500 in restitution, paid all fees and court costs, and was required to complete community service. Ms. Colasar testified at the hearing that at the time of the incident, she was working 2 jobs, that her husband had just had major surgery, and that she had held her cosmetology license since 1997. She had owned and operated her own salon since December of 2004. She's active in her church and volunteer work with an animal rescue. She denied that she stole the money, further explaining the incident in question, stating that she had removed a personal item from her drawer, placed it in her purse, and then went to the restroom. Ms. Colasar indicated she is not a gambler and that she only is requesting removal so she can attend her son's wedding that is to take place at Mohegan Sun in May of 2022, and that she is ashamed and afraid to explain the allegations and circumstances to her family. Subsequently, the report and recommendation was issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals, recommending that Ms. Colasar's request for removal from the list be denied. Ms. Colasar filed exceptions to the recommendation, reiterating her testimony from the hearing, and the matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board reject the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding Heather Colasar's petition for removal from the involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel. Based upon the fact that more than 5 years have elapsed since her placement on the list, Ms. Colasar will be removed from that list.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
I just want to make it clear that we're basing it on the 5-year period as opposed to her denial of the theft, correct?
That's right.
Okay. All right. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next before the board is a report and recommendation pertaining to Fong Nguyen's request for removal from the board's involuntary exclusion list. By way of background, on October 30th, 2019, the board granted the Office of Enforcement Counsel's request to enter default judgment and place the individual on the involuntary exclusion list. The underlying facts in this matter: on that July 16, 2018, Mr. Nguyen left her infant alone in a car for approximately 31 minutes while she gamed at Sugar House Casino, now Rivers, Philadelphia. In April of 2019, she pleaded guilty to endangering the welfare of a child and was sentenced to 2 years of probation, ordered to pay costs and fines associated with her conviction. Additionally, she was permanently evicted from the casino. On November 30th, 2021, Ms. Nguyen filed a petition requesting early removal from the involuntary exclusion list. A hearing in this matter was held on February 9th, 2022. OEC appeared and presented documentary and testimonial evidence. Ms. Nguyen appeared and testified on her own behalf. She stated that she should not have been placed on the list in the first place and would like to have a second chance. Subsequent to that hearing, a report and recommendation was issued recommending denial of her request for early removal from the exclusion list, as she did not present evidence of extraordinary circumstance that would allow her removal from the list, at least until 5 years had run. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding Fong Nguyen's petition for removal from the involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Ms. Nguyen remain on the list.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next is a report and recommendation pertaining to EMR's request for removal from the self-exclusion list. On October 28, 2020, an individual with the initials EMR submitted a request through the board's website to be placed on the self-exclusion list for a period of 5 years. On September 9, 2021, EMR filed her petition requesting removal from the list. OEC filed an answer objecting to that request. A hearing was held in this matter on December 16, 2021. OEC appeared presenting testimony and documentary evidence, and despite receiving proper notice, EMR failed to attend that hearing, and it was held in her absence. OEC presented testimony from the board's Director of Compulsive and Problem Gaming regarding the process for placement on the self-exclusion list, and when filling out the documents online, the necessary two-step confirmation that is conducted to confirm the identity of the person by comparing an uploaded identification card into the system with a live photo taken during the process. The confirmation process also generates a series of personal questions likely only known to the person. EMR had also previously excluded from casino gaming in person at a casino in 2014. Following the hearing on December 21, 2021, EMR requested that the record be reopened so she could testify, which OEC did not object to. And a second hearing was held February 9th of 2022. OEC also appeared and presented additional testimony in support of their position, including the testimony of a program analyst from the board's Office of Compulsive Problem Gambling regarding additional information about the process to self-exclude online. EMR testified that she complied with her first placement on the list in 2014 and her removal from the list at after 5 years. Additionally, she suggested that the request could have been completed by someone she knows, and she also noted that she recently had to obtain a new bank account because of fraudulent activity. EMR was cross-examined the board's program analyst, and during this cross-examination, EMR stated that she could tell that the live photo required for self-exclusion was taken at her daughter's home because she recognized a lamp in the photo. Thereafter, she believed her daughter may have placed her on the list without her permission. EMR stated that unfortunately her daughter had passed away on September 14th after she had filed her petition for removal from the list. After hearing all the evidence presented at the hearings, the hearing officer recommended that EMR's petition be denied, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, that EMR remain on the self-exclusion list.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The final report and recommendation before the board stems from a request from the individual with the initials BP to recover funds confiscated from her while she was on the self-exclusion list. As the board is aware, when an individual who is self-excluded is found in Pennsylvania casino, the act dictates that any winnings that are on the person be confiscated to support compulsive and problem gambling programs. On February 22, 2015, an individual with the initials BP met with a board employee at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia, and submitted a request to be placed on the self-exclusion list for a period of 1 year. On October 13, 2021, BP filed a petition requesting recover funds that were confiscated from her on September 14, 2021, while gaming at Rivers, Philadelphia. A hearing in this matter was held January 6, 2022. The Office of Enforcement Counsel attended the hearing, presenting testimony and documentary evidence, and despite receiving notice, BP failed to attend, and the hearing was held in her absence. Evidence presented by OEC showed that the mandatory interview was conducted with a casino compliance representative and BP, where the entire self-exclusion process was explained, including the consequences and the requirement that to remove oneself from the list after 1 to 5 years if that is selected. BP signed the acknowledgement form selecting a 1-year period, and additional evidence showed that BP had violated her self-exclusion also previously on February 2020 when she gamed at Rivers, Philadelphia, won a jackpot, collected monies, and then left without prior to being identified as self-excluded. Testimony regarding the September 14th, 2021 incident showed that BP had gamed for approximately 1 hour, won a jackpot in the amount of $1,235.20, and that amount was confiscated from her after it was discovered she was on the self-exclusion list. On September 22nd, 2021, BP completed a request with the Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling to be removed from the self-exclusion list. Following a hearing, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that BP's petition to recover funds be granted. OEC filed exceptions to this recommendation, and the matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board reject the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel regarding BP's petition for recovery of confiscated funds while on the self-exclusion list be denied.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
That concludes the matters of the Office of Chief Counsel.
Thank you, Steve and Chad.
Thank you.
We will now have the Bureau of Licensing Matters presented by Director Sean Hannon. Sean?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Today's first licensing matter will be an interactive gaming operator license for High Five Games, LLC. High Five Games is a New Jersey-based interactive gaming software and platform provider that intends to operate an interactive gaming system on behalf of an interactive gaming certificate holder in the Commonwealth. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and asked the board consider the order to approve the interactive gaming operator license for High Five Games, LLC.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board grant the interactive gaming operating license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next is an interactive gaming manufacturer license for Inspired Gaming USA Incorporated. Inspired Gaming is a New York-based interactive gaming software and platform provider that intends to provide interactive games to licensees in the Commonwealth. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and asked the board consider the order to approve the interactive gaming manufacturer license for Inspired Gaming USA Incorporated.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant the interactive gaming manufacturer license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
In addition, we have consideration of a conditional VGT establishment license for Giant Eagle Incorporated, doing business as GetGo, number 3701, Roaring Springs. The board may conditionally license an establishment provided the applicant has never been convicted of a felony, is current on state taxes, has submitted a completed application, and has not been convicted of a gambling law violation. A preliminary review of this applicant indicates that they meet this criteria. Please note that this is strictly a conditional approval. Final approval will be based on the applicant meeting all the eligibility criteria provided in the statute. A final eligibility determination will follow investigation and site inspection by the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement. I have provided you with a draft order and asked the board consider a motion to approve the conditional VGT establishment license for Giant Eagle Incorporated, doing business as GetGo number 3701 Roaring Springs, located at 334 Travelers Road in East Freedom.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the conditional video gaming terminal establishment license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Also, there are principal and key employee licenses and a gaming service provider qualifier. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with a proposed order for 5 principals, 5 key employees, and 1 gaming service provider qualifier. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses and qualification.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant the principal and key employee licenses and gaming service provider qualifications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next are temporary credentials. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order regarding the issuance of a temporary credential for 2 principals and 22 key employees. I ask that the board consider the order approving these credentials.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the temporary principal and key employee credentials as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next are gaming employee permits and non-gaming employee registrations. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a list of 1,119 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted temporary or full occupation permits, and 202 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted registrations under the authority delegated to the Bureau of Licensing. I ask that the board consider a motion approving the order.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board approve the applications for gaming employee occupation permits and non-gaming employee registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
There is also a recommendation of denial for 1 gaming applicant. The applicant was notified that they were being recommended for denial and failed to request a hearing within the specified time frame. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with the order addressing the applicant who the Office of Enforcement Counsel has recommended for denial. I ask that the board consider the order approving the denial.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel continues to request denial in this matter.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board deny the gaming employee application as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter for your consideration are withdrawal requests. In each case, the license, permit, or registration is no longer required. For today's meeting, I have provided the board with 16 gaming employees and 17 non-gaming employee applicants. I ask that the board consider the orders approving these withdrawals.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant the withdrawal of gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Next, we have an order to certify the gaming service provider International Betting Integrity Association. International Betting Integrity Association is based out of Belgium and provides integrity services to sports wagering operators. I have provided you with a draft order and ask the board consider the order certifying International Betting Integrity Association.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the gaming service provider certification as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Finally, for your consideration are gaming service provider registrations. The Bureau of Licensing provides you with an order and an attached list of 9 registered gaming service provider applicants. I ask that the board consider the order registering these gaming service providers.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the gaming service provider registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
This concludes the Bureau of Licensing matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. We will now hear from Chief Enforcement Counsel Cyrus Petrie.
Hey, good morning, Chair, members of the board.
Good morning.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel will present 14 matters today for the board's consideration. Those matters consist of 4 consent agreements, 2 revocations, 1 suspension, and 7 involuntary exclusions. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 2 licensee Wind Creek Bethlehem. The matter will be presented by Assistant Enforcement Counsel Kelsey Scarrato. Representatives from Wind Creek Bethlehem are present, and at this time, I would request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record.
Lynn Kaufman, Cooper Levinson for Wind Creek Bethlehem.
Michael Magazoo, Magazzu, Executive Director, of Compliance and Risk Management for Wind Creek Bethlehem.
Good morning, Kelsey Scorado, SCIRROTTO, Assistant Enforcement Counsel with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda the proposed consent agreement is between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Wind Creek Bethlehem, LLC, doing business as Wind Creek Bethlehem. The consent agreement involves a self-exclusion incident. Between January 11th and January 15th of 2021, a self-excluded individual was on the casino floor for approximately 3 days, 9 hours, and 10 minutes with intermittent breaks. During that time, the individual gamed at 21 MIDI Baccarat tables for approximately 73 hours and 45 minutes and bought in for a total of $10,495. The individual did not use or present identification. On January 15th, 2021, a table games pit manager recognized the individual and notified the surveillance department. The individual was stopped by security, who confiscated $230 in checks, and this amount was remitted to the board. The individual was permanently evicted and was charged with summary defiant trespass. Wind Creek provided OEC with information regarding some of the measures it utilizes to identify self-excluded individuals, including the use of a Veridox hardware and software system. This system provides full scanning capabilities for multiple forms of identification and can be used to identify self-exclusion individuals before they enter the casino floor. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel respectfully requests that the board approve the proposed consent agreement and stipulation of settlement, which requires that Wind Creek pay a civil penalty in the amount of $20,000 and administrative fee of $2,500 for costs incurred by OEC, BIE, and other related staff in connection with this matter. If you have any questions, we would be happy to address them at this time.
Wind Creek, do you have anything you'd like to say at this time?
We would just like to say we are back again. This time we have agreed to an increased civil penalty of $20,000 as opposed to the $10,000 that had been before you the last time, and we would respectfully request your approval of the consent agreement.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board adopt the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Wind Creek Bethlehem, LLC, as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 1 licensee Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, doing business as Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. The matter will be presented by Assistant Enforcement Counsel Thomas Monahan. Representatives for Hollywood Casino are present. And at this time, I request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record.
Alex Vizda, Director of Compliance.
Alex, could you spell your name, please, for the court reporter?
Vizda, H-V-I-Z-D-A.
And Dan, would you stand and be sworn and identify yourself for the court reporter? Thank you.
Do you swear that the testimony about the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Board. My name is Dan Im. Last name is I-H-M.
You may proceed.
Good morning, Thomas Monahan, M-O-N-A-G-H-A-N, with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a proposed consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, doing business as Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. This consent agreement involves a self-excluded patron. A self-excluded patron was detected at the cage by a cage supervisor after the patron attempted to cash a check. Security arrived at the cage and met with the patron, who stated that she signed up for self-exclusion in 2016 for a one-year period and was under the impression she was allowed to return since the time had expired. Pennsylvania State Police charged the patron with trespassing, and she was escorted off the property. A review of surveillance of the patron's activities revealed the patron was able to successfully cash a check for $100 from a different cage cashier earlier on that date. During the transaction, the cage cashier failed to check the system, which notifies the cashier of the patron's self-exclusion status. As a result of this incident, the cage cashier was issued a documented coaching. After cashing the check, the patron engaged in slot play for approximately 26 minutes at one slot machine before returning to the cage, where she was discovered to be self-excluded. A full surveillance review revealed that the total time the patron gained on that date was approximately 1 hour. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board approve the proposed consent agreement, which requires that Hollywood Casino pay a civil penalty in the amount of $7,500 and administrative fee of $2,500 for costs incurred by OEC, BIE, and other related staff in connection with this matter. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Mountain View, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Just very briefly, Madam Chair, members of the board, here with our GM, Dan Im. Dan and I have reviewed this extensively and tried to figure out what happened. And essentially, this cashier just lost focus and committed human error. All of our cashiers do dozens of transactions on each shift where they're required to check the self-exclusion list before proceeding with the transaction. This cashier indicates she just forgot what she was doing. She received the documented coaching, and then we looked at our ICs. It was clearly set forth in our check cashing IC 465A20, which was also clearly set forth in our cashier procedure manual that you need to do this check. The fact that it was caught by another person on the team, we believe shows that the training is there, and it was just a matter of human error. Nonetheless, we did have everybody in the department go through and do a read and sign to reinforce the need to always check the self-exclusion list. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board adopt the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and slot machine manufacturer designee licensee TDN Money Systems. The matter will be presented by Senior Enforcement Counsel Michael Rowland. Do you have anybody from TDN? Not here. Individuals for TDN were provided notice that their matter will be taken up today by the board, but they've chosen not to attend.
Okay, well, then you can proceed.
The next matter on the agenda is a proposed consent agreement which involves TDN Money Systems, Inc. and a failure to notify of a change in ownership. TDN is a distributor and servicer of gaming equipment, supplies, ticket sorting machines, and currency handling machines in the casino industry. TDN was licensed as a slot machine manufacturer designee on or about April 21st, 2021. TDN was wholly owned by Richard Orlando. However, effective January 1st, 2022, Richard Orlando sold 100% of the issued and outstanding stock of TDN to Louis Orlando III and Gordon Bell. Both of these individuals are licensed as principals with the board. Richard Orlando resigned as director, president, and CEO of TDN effective December 31st, 2021. Louis Orlando III was named the new president and CEO of TDN, and Gordon Bell was named the new vice president, treasurer, and secretary. Per the shareholder agreement following the transaction, Louis Orlando III now owns 60% of TDN, and Gordon Bell owns 40% of TDN. Richard Orlando remains with the company as a part-time employee. In January of 2021, the Bureau of Licensing discovered the proposed change of control in TDN's submitted 2020 fourth quarter Statement of Condition documentation. When questioned about the change, TDN representatives advised that the change had not yet taken place and would be delayed until July 2021. At that time, the Bureau of Licensing advised TDN to submit a change of control petition 60 days prior to July 1st, 2021. On or about January 5th, 2022, TDN submitted their 2021 fourth quarter Statement of Condition report. The ownership in the report indicated that as of January 1st, 2022, Richard Orlando was no longer the 100% owner of TDN and that the interests had been transferred transferred to Louis Orlando and Gordon Bell. The petition for change of control as required pursuant to 58 PACS Section 429A was not received by the board until January the 6th, 2022. OEC now requests that the board approve this consent agreement and stipulation of settlement entered into between the parties. The terms of the settlement include that TDN Money Systems, Inc. shall pay a civil penalty in the amount of $7,500 to the board within 5 days of the board's order approving this consent agreement. Also, within 5 days, TDN Money Systems, Inc. shall pay to the board $2,500 for the costs incurred by OEC, BIE, and other related staff in connection with this matter. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to address them at this time.
Does the board have any questions or comments? Well, I have a question and a comment. Do we know why representatives from TDN have not appeared?
We do not. I have spoken both with both of the Orlandos, both Richard Orlando and Louis Orlando. I can't remember which of the two individuals had requested how the process would move forward. I advised they would receive notice of the public meeting and they would have the opportunity to attend, and they led me to believe that they would see me in the future. And that's where we left it.
So if we don't approve this based on their non-attendance and disrespect of the board, we'd have to come back, right?
Yes.
And possibly with a greater penalty.
A greater penalty, or we could table the matter and find out what occurred.
Can you give us a minute, please?
Just be aware, Madam Chair, that remember that you did already, the board already approved the change of control.
I know we
in this
did.
matter. I understand.
We didn't know they were not here
No, we
at that
didn't.
time. So, and are they from Pennsylvania?
New Jersey.
From New Jersey.
New Jersey.
We can vote on it. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. It's just kind of focus. Maybe make a note of the file when they come back again.
Okay.
Where's the location? Yeah.
If they're from Aston. Yeah.
Madam Chair, I recommend we move forward, but maybe put them on double super secret probation or something.
Did you catch that, court reporter?
I mean, is it unusual that, has this ever happened before, I guess is the question. It's just odd.
It has happened, and it's usually left to the board's discretion as to whether they want to proceed or whether they want to table the matter until the future.
Do they let us know that they're not coming usually, or?
We have not heard from them.
But I mean, other times people don't come, do they?
It's sometimes they do and sometimes they don't.
Okay.
Oh. Okay. Based on some recently received information, we're just going to table this matter.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and fantasy contest operator Underdog Sports, Inc., doing business as Underdog Fantasy. The matter will be presented by Senior Enforcement Counsel James Armstrong. Representatives for Underdog Fantasy are present, and at this time I request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record.
Adam Berger of Dwayne Morris on behalf of Underdog Sports, and I'm joined by Alexander Beck from Underdog.
Is Mr. Beck a lawyer?
He is not.
Could you ask him to stand and be sworn, please?
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank
James Armstrong for the Office of Enforcement Counsel, ARMSTRONG. Chair, Commissioners, The consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Underdog Sports is in regard to Underdog permitting 2 individuals and 5 entities to hold a direct ownership and interest in Underdog Sports without notifying the board and without submitting applications or being issued authorization or licenses. Commissioners, on June 2nd of 2020, Underdog Sports applied to the board for licensure as a fantasy contest operator. During 2020, Underdog Sports entered into 2 types of equity-based agreements with investors. On May 19th of 2021, the board granted Underdog Sports licensure as a fantasy contest operator. On January 31st, 2022, Underdog Sports filed an amended petition seeking board approval of a restructuring and change in control in Underdog Sports. The investigation regarding the amended petition found that the investors who entered into the equity-based agreements in 2020 converted the notes derived from the agreements into equity shares in April of 2021. The conversions resulted in 5 entities and 2 individuals with direct ownership interests of 1% or greater in Underdog Sports. The investigation also found that Underdog Sports did not inform the board of the note conversions, nor did Underdog Sports inform the board of the resulting changes in ownership from what was provided in their application. On March 11th of 2022, the board's Bureau of Licensing issued a demand letter to Underdog Sports requiring the 2 individuals to file principal license applications and the 5 entities to file principal entity license applications. All 7 of these applications were filed on or before April 1st of 2022. Underdog Sports failed to timely notify the board of a change in ownership and control after filing its applications and after it was licensed by the board. Underdog Sports permitted 2 individuals and 5 entities to hold a greater than 1% direct ownership interest in Underdog Sports without notifying the board and without submitting applications or holding principal licenses. Underdog Sports also permitted the 2 individuals and 5 entities to obtain a greater than 15% share in its securities and direct ownership interest, allowing the 2 individuals and 5 entities to obtain a total of 18.575% direct ownership interest when they all converted to equity-based agreements in April of 2021 without notifying the board. Commissioners, OEC and Underdog Sports request that the board approve the consent agreement and stipulation of settlement. The terms of the settlement include a provision that Underdog Sports agrees to provide additional training and guidance to its compliance employees and in regard to licensing requirements and change of ownership in Underdog Sports. Underdog Sports shall also pay a civil penalty of $8,000 and a penalty of $2,500 for costs incurred. We'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Underdog Sports, do you have anything you'd like to add this time?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. We'd just like to thank OEC for their cooperation and help on this matter. And we'd just like to note for the board's attention that Underdog, since the time of these incidents last year, has hired a head of compliance. They've also boasted their regulatory staff hired us at Duane Morris to be their outside gaming counsel to assist on matters and ensure that incidents like this do not occur in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves the board adopt the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Underdog Sports, Inc. as described, by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next 3 matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed complaints seeking the suspension of 1 gaming employee occupation permit and the revocation of 1 gaming occupation permit and 1 non-gaming employee registration, all of which were issued by the board. The complaints in each matter have been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in each complaint. The individual named in each complaint failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each matter and properly served the same upon each respondent. Therefore, the facts in each complaint are deemed admitted. All 5 filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Kelsey Scrata, once again with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to John Rosa. Mr. Rosa was previously employed in the security department at Mohegan Sun Pocono. BIE was notified that Mr. Rosa had been criminally charged with felony theft offenses due to allegedly stealing items from a Walmart distribution center where he was employed at the time. The charges are currently pending. He was not employed in the gaming industry at the time of arrest, and he is not currently employed in the gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel will request that the board suspend the gaming employee occupation permit issued to John Rosa.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the suspension of John Rosa's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Thomas Monahan, once again with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Sam Williams. While working as an EVS attendant at Harris, Philadelphia, Mr. Williams stole a patron's money that was dropped on the gaming floor. Mr. Williams was terminated for his employment and is not currently employed in the Pennsylvania gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board revoke the non-gaming employee registration issued to Sam Williams.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the revocation of Sam Williams' non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Kenneth Mcsavin. On multiple dates, while working as a sportsbook cashier at Valley Forge Casino, Mr. Mcsavin committed multiple thefts of cash and winning sportsbook tickets from patrons. Mr. Mcsavin was terminated from his employment and criminally charged for his actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Kenneth Mcsavin.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board approve the revocation of Kenneth Mcsavin's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The remaining matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking the involuntary exclusion of individuals whose presence in a licensed facility are inimical to the interests of the Commonwealth and are licensed gaming therein. In each instance, a petition for exclusion has been filed with the Board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in the petition. The individual named in each petition failed to respond within 30 days as required by Board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each individual. Therefore, all facts in each petition are deemed admitted, all filed documents have been provided to the Board, and the matters are presently ripe for the Board's consideration. In each instance, if the Board orders the proposed exclusion, each individual's photo, personal identifiers, and a summary of their inimical conduct may be placed on the Board's public website. Once again, in each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate Board action.
Thomas Monahan, once again with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Kenneth Mcsavin on the board's involuntary exclusion list. On multiple dates while working as a sportsbook cashier at Valley Forge Casino, Mr. Mcsavin committed multiple thefts of cash and winning sportsbook tickets from patrons, and Mr. Mcsavin was terminated for his employment and criminally charged for his actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board place Kenneth Mcsavin on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board approve the addition of Kenneth Mcsavin to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Dennis Bonilla on the board's voluntary exclusion list. Mr. Bonilla stole a cell phone that was left behind by a patron at a blackjack table at Rivers Casino, Pittsburgh. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board place Dennis Bonilla on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board approve the addition of Dennis Bonilla to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Robert Dugan on the board's involuntary exclusion list. While working as a table games dealer at Mount Airy Casino, Mr. Dugan colluded with a patron to manipulate the roulette ball multiple times to the benefit of that patron. He was terminated from his employment, permanently evicted from Mount Airy, and pled guilty to misdemeanor theft by unlawful taking. Further, a bag containing narcotics and drug paraphernalia was discovered by security at Wind Creek Bethlehem Casino. Subsequent investigation revealed that the bag was left behind by Mr. Dugan while he patronized the licensed facility. Mr. Dugan was permanently evicted from Wind Creek and criminally charged for his actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board place Robert Dugan on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Robert Dugan to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Sydney Shore on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Ms. Shore used her employment at an optometrist's office to steal the identity of patients and use that information to create approximately 187 fraudulent interactive gaming accounts on Hollywood Casino at Penn National's online gaming platform. Ms. Shore was criminally charged and pled guilty to misdemeanor identity theft. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board place Sydney Shore on the board's involuntary exclusion list from licensed facilities and also from participation or access to interactive gaming.
Any questions or comments from the board? Just would like to emphasize this is the first time we're placing somebody on the interactive gaming exclusion list, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to have a motion, please.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Sydney Shore to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list and the interactive gaming involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. John Crowe, C-R-O-H-E, for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a petition to place Shaina Jones on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Shaina Jones illegally posted a $100 Dragon bonus bet wager while playing Midi Baccarat at Live Casino Philadelphia. Ms. Jones was charged with a criminal violation of the Gaming Act for her actions. Ms. Jones had previously been involved in cheating and disorderly conduct incidents at Parks Casino and Rivers Philadelphia Casino. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board place Shaina Jones on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the addition of Shaina Jones to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a petition to place Doris Olivero on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Doris Olivero aided her 19-year-old daughter in gaming at Mount Airy. Ms. Olivero transposed an over 21 stamp from her hand to the hand of her daughter. Ms. Olivero was permanently evicted from Mount Airy for her actions. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board place Doris Olivero on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board approve in part the addition of Doris Oliverio to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel, and that Ms. Oliverio shall be placed on the list for a period of 2 years, at which point she may request removal from the list.
May I have a second, please?
Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Kelsey Scrata once again with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Keon Stith on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Ms. Stith and her friend left Ms. Stith's 10-year-old child unattended in her friend's hotel room at Wind Creek, Bethlehem. Ms. Stith and her friend left the child unattended in the hotel room 4 times, starting at 1:10 a.m. for a total of 2 hours and 17 minutes. During that time, Ms. Stith and her friend were on the gaming floor for approximately 57 minutes. The child was discovered to be unattended when the child left the hotel room and went to the hotel front desk. Ms. Stith and her friend were located on the gaming floor. Ms. Stith was not charged by police for this incident, but she was permanently evicted from Wind Creek, Bethlehem for her actions. At this time, OEC requests that the board place Keon Stith on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Just a comment, I can't believe that they didn't turn on the TV and see that it was illegal to leave their kid in the hotel room, or looked at the key jacket, but I see our friends have left.
I'm not so sure those two, right, okay.
I can read your mind.
All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz moves that the board approve the addition of Keone Seth of the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Logan, seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you. That concludes our business.
Thank you, Cyrus. That concludes today's meeting. The next public meeting of the board will be held on Wednesday, June 15th, 2022 at 10 a.m. at this location. And now may I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.